There seems to be no end in sight to the crisis in Ukraine, as pro-Russian separatists in Donetsk say they will not leave the government building, defying the Kiev authorities and threatening a new international deal on the crisis-torn country. The separatist spokesman told the media that the Kiev government is illegal, so they will not go until the Kiev government steps down. Russia, Ukraine, the EU, US earlier agreed that illegal military groups in Ukraine must leave official buildings. They reached a deal in Geneva.
Pro-Russian separatists occupying public buildings in eastern Ukraine reacted to an international accord to defuse the crisis by saying today that they would not agree to leave the sites before other major conditions were met. The Ukrainian and Russian governments, along with the United States and European Union, signed an agreement in Geneva that read, "All illegal armed groups must be disarmed. All illegally seized buildings must be returned to legitimate owners. All illegally occupied streets, squares and other public places in Ukrainian cities and towns must be vacated." But pro-Russian activists in the flashpoint city of Slovyansk said that wording meant Ukrainian nationalists still camped out on Kiev's Maidan 2 months after the protests overthrew the Kremlin-backed president must also clear away their barricades. They say they plan to maintain their sittings until they could hold a referendum next month that some believe can emulate Crimea and see the region annexed to Russia. But in Donetsk, residents held a rally to support unity with Kiev and national integrity of Ukraine as pro-Russia activists continue to occupy government buildings in the eastern Ukrainian city. Over 2,000 residents took part in the rally to express their Ukrainian patriotism. The current authorities in Kiev took over power when President Viktor Yanukovych fled to Russia in February after police killed dozens of protesters in Independence Square, known as Maidan. Meanwhile, a joint statement issued after talks in Geneva called on all sides to refrain from violence, intimidation, and provocative action. But U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry warned of more sanctions if Russia fails to act.
We fully expect the Russians, as they said they would here today, to demonstrate their seriousness by insisting that pro-Russian separatists who they've been supporting lay down their arms, leave the buildings, and pursue their political objectives through the constitutional processes that the agreement guarantees.
Russia's foreign minister said all sides had agreed to turn away from violence in the hope of de-escalating the crisis. And he said that despite President Vladimir Putin's assertions that Russia reserved a right to send its troops into Ukraine, it was not an option they wanted to use. NATO has ruled out military involvement in Ukraine, but announced plans to send more ships, planes and troops to Eastern Europe to reassure other nations.